What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Dino's the Fantasy Guru, back with another video as promised. I am outside now on the terrace section of my little villa that I'm in. It's pretty warm, but I did find some shade. Hope you all enjoyed the action yesterday, first week of the fantasy playoffs. There was a lot of disappointment, a lot of injuries, and a lot of heartache. As far as my teams are concerned, I'm in pretty good shape. Out of the 4 matchups where I had to actually start a roster, looking good in 3 and hopeful for 4, but it's not looking good. But I'll just go through the playoff studs from yesterday's action. I know we still have the Steelers and the Dolphins tonight. So I'll go over the playoff duds and the playoff studs. Hopefully my audio is coming in good and you can hear me clearly. Right now it's quiet. There was a lot of music earlier, so I had to wait a little later to record this video. Playoff studs, let's get it. Amon-Ra St. Brown, over 130 yards and 2 touchdowns in a shootout with the Rams, and then they did actually lose that game by a touchdown. But Amon-Ra showed up big time, and if you had him on your roster, you're probably in good shape. As far as running backs, we got to go TreVeyon Henderson, 148 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yes, one was on a long run. It seems to be a reoccurring thing with him that he doesn't need a lot of carries. He's an explosive back that can break it at any point. So you just have to start him and just, wait for that one run. It may or may not happen. That's the difficulty with TreVeyon Henderson at the moment. Him and Rhamondre Stevenson are still splitting carries, even though I feel like TreVeyon Henderson is the actual better back going forward for the Patriots. James Cooks, with another good game for Buffalo, and that same game with Henderson. Both running backs had monster games. Cooks had, I believe, 3 touchdowns. Didn't have as many yards, but he had 3 touchdowns. And I'm sure if you had both of those running backs, you were in really good shape. For some reason yesterday, it also seemed like a tight end day. I didn't see that one coming. McBride and Kyle Pitts. I know Kyle Pitts played on Thursday. He had just an enormous game. I think he put up over 40 fantasy points, the best game of his career. And that's what most of you fantasy people thought you were getting when you drafted him coming out of Florida. He's basically Bowers before Bowers. He's a wide receiver playing tight end, and you expected wide receiver production out of that slot, and you got rewarded if you stuck with Kyle Pitts, again, with 3 touchdowns yesterday. Monster day. McBride, another monster day as well. The funny thing about McBride, about halfway through the season, I considered trading Brock Bowers for Trey McBride, specifically based on the quarterback situation. Brock Bowers is in a terrible situation for his talent. I feel like it's being wasted. The Raiders did not address their quarterback situation. Geno had his little run in Seattle, and he has regressed back to the Jets version of Geno Smith. Jacoby Brissett is a better quarterback. He can distribute the ball. They may not get wins, but he is still putting up fantasy points. And if you picked him up, you are definitely being rewarded because he's still throwing that rock, right? And I believe that the Cardinals are going to move on from Kyler Murray. Apologies for the background noise if you're hearing it. Let's move on to the kicker, Jason Myers, the Seattle Seahawks, who had a cheeks matchup with the Colts, throwing out 38, however old Phillip Rivers is, 44, however old he is. He's too damn old to be playing quarterback just sitting on the couch. So they threw him out there. I didn't think it happened, and it actually happened. They did throw Phillip Rivers out there. And I know everybody was in an uproar about that. I actually had the Seahawks defense in a few matchups and thinking, good Lord, how many points is the Seattle Seahawks defense going to get me? And I'll get to them in this second half of this video. But Rivers didn't do too bad, surprisingly, against the top-rated Seahawks defense. On the road, in fact. This was not a home game. This was on the road in Seattle. And the Colts were there to the very end. And Jason Myers, scored all of the points for the Seahawks as they were unable to score a touchdown. Again, I warn folks about Sam Darnold. This is around the time of the year that he starts to fade And if you didn't go and get up another quarterback heading into the playoffs, I feel sorry for you because he's probably going to cost you a win in your playoff matchup as predicted by yours truly. There were a few notable defenses that had good games. There was 2 shutouts. The Ravens threw a shutout against the Bengals. Did not see that shit coming. The Bears, I knew that the Bears would win against the Browns, but I didn't know how much they would win by. The Bears actually have the most takeaways from defense. So they are a top-rated defense, although most folks don't really see the Bears as a top defense. But if you look at the numbers, again, this is a fantasy show. We look at numbers, not wins and losses. The numbers are there. So the Bears had a good game, and the Eagles blanking the Raiders, who aforementioned, even without Geno Smith, played Kenny Pickett. I think he had less than 100 yards passing, which in turn ruined the day for Brock Bowers. And now I'll flip the page and get to the fantasy duds. And there was a damn laundry list of these fuckers. So, damn, Joe Burrow, damn near considered retirement, goes out and lays an absolute egg against a divisional rival who he normally torches. And that's why the Ravens ended up on the fantasy stud list for defenses. Shit's flying everywhere. Sam Darnold, as I mentioned before, 0 touchdowns. So that's 2 top 10 quarterbacks with 0 touchdowns and favorable matchups in a playoff scenario. I know you're pissed. I am, because I have both of these quarterbacks. Fortunately, neither one of them cost me a win because the rest of my roster was stacked and they did perform up to snuff, getting me through to the second round or the semifinals of fantasy football playoffs. More duds yesterday. Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously with St. Brown going off, you kind of figured somebody was going to suffer. And unfortunately, it was Jahmyr Gibbs who suffered the wrath of Amon-Ra going off. And that game yesterday, Gibbs ended up, I believe he only had 38 yards on the ground, just a couple of catches, very pedestrian effort. Now that particular person is probably going to cost me a win in one of my leagues. And I'm sure fantasy wide, people are feeling the pain from Gibbs with a very, very, very mediocre performance in the playoff round. Ashton Jeanty, again, another Raider. There's a lot of Raiders on this list, so just hang in there. Ashton Jeanty, only 35 yards rushing. Moving on to tight ends, Brock Bowers had 6 catches for 28 yards. That's actually ridiculous. I really feel sorry if you have Bowers in a standard format because that's only 2.8 if you do fractional points. In the PPR, it's not as bad because he did get the 6th reception, but an absolute shit performance. And it's no fault of Brock Bowers, which is the sad part of it. It's all on the quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. Jake Ferguson, another subpar performance. Dallas was going against Minnesota in a must-win game and laid an absolute egg at home, as predicted. This is what Dallas does. It's December. They don't win games in December. Typically, if you have Cowboys, you want to offload their asses in November before the December swoon comes because it happens every year. CeeDee Lamb did have a decent game, but George Pickens was invisible. Dak again didn't show up in a must-win game. I don't have a rhyme or reason to it other than this is what Dallas does in December, and we are midway through December as it is today, the 15th of December. Moving on to fantasy duds from the defense and special teams. Gotta go Seattle. This is probably the most surprising showing I've seen from this defense all season. They've been top 2 or 3 or 1 pretty much the entire fantasy year. And again, they're going against a depleted Colts team with Phillip Rivers, basically a high school coach, getting off the couch and starting in an NFL game with no preseason, no training camp, no OTAs, just threw him to the Wolves. And the Seahawks almost fucking lost that game. In fact, I think they should have lost. Based on from what I've seen, I watched the replay. Seattle should have lost that game. And they could thank their lucky stars because they kept pace with the Rams in the NFC West, which is basically a three-horse race with the 49ers. So whoever wins these last few games is going to win a division. I believe the Rams play Seattle this Thursday. Devontae Adams did suffer a hamstring injury, so that is not going to help their cause. But it won't hurt as much because Seattle's offense has been putrid the last few weeks. They're not scoring touchdowns. Other than Smith and Jigba, their running game is just abysmal. I don't trust Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker. I would not trust them in a fantasy matchup. If you can pivot to someone else, I know I talk shit about Bill Krosky Merritt. Chris Rodriguez, to my surprise, ended up out, and I didn't get him out of my lineup. And Krosky Merritt went for 96 and a touchdown. Now, just understand, you are definitely playing Russian roulette if you decide to throw Krosky Merritt into your lineup in a playoff setting, because you never know what that backfield is going to do. But I will tell you, I would avoid the Seattle backfield like the plague right now. It's just too damn unpredictable. One more dud to note. We got to go kicker. We got to go McPherson. Obviously, with the Bengals getting shut out against the Ravens, he didn't get any opportunities to kick a field goal or extra point. So he got a big fat ass 0. There were a couple kickers out there that got a 0. Carlson from the Raiders got a 0. It's feast or famine this week, folks. So week to week, it's going to change. It is Tuesday, so I know waiver wires are coming. I'm actually going to do a video about that. I meant to do it before I left for vacation. I didn't do so. My apologies, but I'll just put a little note in here now about that. For you fuckers that are still on the waiver wire and you are not in the playoffs, kill yourself. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that on the internet, but just fuck you. Yeah, that's a little better. That's a little more PG. You are not in contention. You have no business being on the waiver wire, picking up players to win a consolation ladder, which don't mean shit. But I guess pride, you gave it the college try. I'm as competitive as anyone, but I do not like people that are not in the playoffs taking players off of the waiver wire. Leave that to the people who are actually playing for something other than a Punic victory. Okay, that's all I have for them. Off my soapbox. It is really hot out here. This is your boy Dino, the Fantasy Guru. We're going into week 16, week 2 of the fantasy playoffs. Good luck. I know there's a game tonight. When I return, I will probably do another quick video giving you a preview and some insights going into this upcoming weekend's games. I know there's a big game Thursday. Again, the Devontae Adams injury is key. You might want to watch out for that. The Packers lost Micah Parsons to an ACL, and we all know about Patrick Mahomes' ACL injury. He is out for the year, and the Chiefs' run is over. I expect Travis Kelce to retire at the end of the season, and the Chiefs may go into a full-on rebuild. You heard it here first on Dino's, the Fantasy Guru YouTube channel. I will holler at you guys soon. Good luck in the next week of the fantasy playoffs. Peace.